5 marriages, 5 women, 5 attempts, 5 failures. Berlin was the man who could plan a €44 million heist across every possible variable. The man who could read a room in seconds, the man who could manipulate, calculate, and outmaneuver almost anyone who stood in his way, but he could not make a single person stay, not one, and the reason why is darker than you think. Today we find out exactly why Berlin was always unlucky in love, using every scene the show actually gave us. When people talk about Berlin, they talk about the suit, the wine, the cold intelligence, the philosophical speeches that made cruelty sound like culture. Nobody talks about the loneliness, but it was always there, running underneath every scene, every glass of wine poured alone, every marriage that ended before it should have, every person who came close to Berlin and eventually left. The entire Berlin Netflix series was an exploration of a thief's endeavor to find love that stays. But alas, the man was never destined for such a fate. And today we are going to go through every relationship Berlin had, using exactly what the show gave us, and understand why that fate was never an accident. It was always inevitable. Let us start where the Berlin series starts. The very first episode opens with Berlin and his wife getting a divorce. According to Berlin himself, 2 things made his day: love and a big heist. That line tells you everything about the man before a single heist scene plays. Love is not separate from the heist for Berlin. It is equal to it. It sits in the same category, something to be pursued, executed, and ultimately lost. And by the time we meet him in Paris, he is recovering from his 3rd divorce, determined to find love wherever it may be. 3rd divorce. Not 1st, not 2nd. 3rd. And yet, like he said himself, 5 marriages mean 5 times he believed in love. Berlin was not cynical about love. He was not closed off. He was not the man who gave up. He kept trying, kept believing, kept walking into the next relationship with the same open conviction that this time would be different. That is not the profile of a man who does not care about love. That is the profile of a man who cares about love so completely and so desperately that he cannot stop chasing it even when the pattern of failure is staring him directly in the face. And that desperation, that consuming need for love to be real and permanent, was the very thing that destroyed every relationship he ever had. Now we look at what Berlin actually did when he arrived in Paris. His team placed surveillance cameras in the apartment across from their hotel targeting Monsieur Francois Polignac, the curator of the auction house they planned to rob. And through those cameras, Berlin saw Camille. In Camille, Berlin found a hint of loneliness. She would wake up in the middle of the night and start reading a book while Berlin watched her from a distance, surmising that she wasn't happy in her married life. A married woman, completely unavailable, already committed to another man. And Berlin became obsessed immediately. This is not a coincidence. This is the first clear pattern in Berlin's love life. He did not pursue available women. He pursued women who already belonged to other situations. Because unavailable women gave Berlin something available women never could, a barrier that kept the relationship exciting and the outcome uncertain. Berlin and Camille began an affair in no time. Berlin's only request was that she take the relationship with him seriously, as he was not looking for a fling. But Camille could never fully commit, and when her husband discovered the affair, she asked Berlin to break things off because Francois was the love of her life, and she would rather be with him. Berlin, the man who had studied her through surveillance cameras, manufactured every meeting and convinced himself he understood her completely, never saw it coming. Because he had fallen in love with the version of Camille he had constructed in his own mind, not the actual woman making her own choices in front of him. Now we get to the relationship that broke Berlin more completely than any other. His 5th wife was a thief called Tatiana. She appeared in the Bank of Spain flashback sequences at Berlin's wedding, where he sang "Ti amo" to her. A man who had been divorced 3 times, who had failed with Camille, who had carried a terminal diagnosis for years, standing at an altar singing to a woman he believed was finally the one. And then Berlin follows Tatiana because the divorce doesn't add up, and he later learns that his wife is having an affair with his own son, Raphael. He then confronts his son, to which Raphael responds that he wanted to tell him about the affair, but couldn't. He further confesses that it's been 3 weeks, and he is really in love with her, his wife, his son. Together, A heartbroken Berlin then wishes Raphael and Tatiana the best and mentions that they will not get a pension or a vast inheritance from him. He then trashes the bar and gets arrested for it, which is unusual for any member of Money Heist. That last detail is the most important one. Berlin, the man who never lost control, the man who poured wine during crises, the man who gave speeches about composure and elegance under pressure, trashed a bar and got himself arrested because of heartbreak. Now we come to the relationship the show handled most carefully, and the one that reveals the deepest truth about why Berlin was always unlucky in love. Palermo was in love with his best friend Berlin for 10 years, so much so that he suffered severely from depression after his death, turning to alcohol as a coping mechanism. 10 years. A decade of being beside the person you love most, planning heists together, building something extraordinary together, and never being able to say it out loud. In the 8th episode of Season 4, we are treated to a poignant and emotional flashback featuring Berlin and Palermo. Berlin finally musters the courage to address Palermo's unrequited love for him. The two share a steamy, sensual kiss with deep passion. But then Berlin confesses that while he cares deeply for Palermo, their paths could never intertwine romantically. Despite their palpable love, Berlin admits he lacks the same desire towards Palermo. And here is what makes this the most tragic love story in Berlin's entire life. I really like women, and you really like me, Berlin tells Palermo directly. Palermo loved Berlin completely, genuinely, and for 10 years without asking for anything in return. No games, no manipulation, no agenda. Just love the purest and most straightforward. Love anyone ever offered Andrés de Fonollosa, and Berlin could not receive it. Not because Palermo was not worthy of love, but because Berlin had spent his entire life pursuing love that came with barriers, complications, and uncertainty, and the one person who offered him something clean and real and without conditions was the one person he turned away. Palermo wanted nothing more than to be with Berlin, but never got the chance to even say goodbye. Berlin died in the Royal Mint, and Palermo, who had loved him for 10 years, was not even there. Now we understand the full picture. Berlin was not unlucky. In love, the way the universe is randomly cruel to some people, Berlin was unlucky in love because of 3 patterns he carried into every single relationship and never once examined. First, he pursued unavailable people. Camille was married. The complications were external. The barriers were circumstantial, which meant if things failed, Berlin could always blame the situation rather than himself. Second, he loved the idea of a person more than the actual person. He surveilled Camille before he met her. He constructed a version of her in his mind, lonely, passionate, ready to be saved from her marriage, and fell in love with that construction. The real Camille, who had her own plans and her own agenda and her own choices, surprised him completely. Because Berlin had never truly been watching her, he had been watching his own projection of her. Third, and most painfully, Berlin was so committed to the idea of love that 5 marriages means 5 times he believed. That belief was real. But belief alone cannot sustain a relationship, and Berlin, who could plan every variable of a criminal heist, could never plan for the one variable that destroys most relationships. Every woman Berlin loved eventually exercised that freedom. Camille chose her husband. Tatiana chose his son. 3 other wives, whose names we never learned, chose to leave. And Palermo, who never had a choice about loving Berlin, was the only one who would have stayed forever. Berlin never fully understood that.
5 marriages, 5 failures, a lifetime of loving people who could not stay, and turning away the one person who would never have left. Berlin said it himself.
Take it from me, I've had 5 divorces. Understand what that means? 5 times I thought I was in love.
And that, right there, is both the most beautiful and most heartbreaking thing about Andrés de Fonollosa. Not that he stopped believing, but that he kept believing through every divorce, every betrayal, every loss, with the same conviction every single time. He was not unlucky in love because love failed him. He was unlucky in love because he never learned how to hold it when it was actually there. If this made you see Berlin's love life differently, or if you think one of his relationships was actually real, drop it in the comments.